Stan Bowman is back in the NHL and the new general manager of the Edmonton Oilers.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, just a reminder off the top to please go and hit that like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. It's all 100% free, won't cost you anything, and really does help me out tremendously as I'm currently on the climb to 2,000 subscribers. And last but certainly not least, got to let you all know today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Sign up today and download the Game Time app. When you do, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off to the sporting events, concerts, or theater events near you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. I hope everyone out there is having themselves a wonderful Wednesday. As some of you may have noticed, I'm finally starting to add to the decor here in the background. It's been an eventful last couple of months with the show, my day job, going through the entire moving process. So better late than never here, but I promise to be adding some more cool Blackhawks themed stuff in the background that you'll probably notice over the next couple of weeks. But kicking things off on today's episode here, Hawks fans, I swear sometimes these things write themselves, because as I teased on yesterday's episode when I broke down all 8 of the first round selections that Kyle Davidson has made since taking over as general manager, be sure to go check out that episode if you haven't done so already. But as I teased on yesterday's episode, on today's show, I'm going to be going through all of the first round selections made by former Hawks general manager Stan Bowman from 2017 to 2021 that kind of aided in the Blackhawks really taking a step back, and Davidson basically having to start from square one when he took over. And sure enough, before I could get to recording this episode, Stan Bowman, not only do we know he has been reinstated by the NHL, I broke that down a couple of weeks ago, but he has now been hired by the Edmonton Oilers, replacing Ken Holland as their new general manager and vice president of hockey operations. Bowman was reinstated back on July 1st, along with Al McIsaac and Joel Quenneville, after previously all 3 of them were sidelined stemming from their inadequate response to the Kyle Beach situation that began during the 2010 Western Conference Final, and also all of the events following, as Brad Aldrich was not only allowed to remain with the team and have his name on the Stanley Cup, go to the celebrations, but he was actually allowed to continue working in his professional career, even though he was removed from the Blackhawks organization. They didn't really give any sour letters of recommendation. In fact, if anything, it was the opposite, and they allowed Brad Aldrich to go on and unfortunately assault others down the road, including multiple minors. So not only was it their inadequate response of what happened at the time, but it was also their mishandling as well as the NHL's of the entire situation. But as I said, when it was announced that all 3 of those guys got reinstated, I believed it was only going to be a matter of time to see them back in the league. My first 3 initial responses or reactions to Bowman being back in the NHL. First and foremost, number 1, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised the NHL is allowing them back in. I mean, we've seen the NHL do this time and time again and have their own inadequate responses to situations. And a lot of people firmly believe that the Blackhawks were not penalized enough for this mishandling outside of their $2 million fine. They weren't costed any draft picks or anything like that. And I'm not surprised, because that's how the NHL conducts their business. It's a shady league. That shouldn't be a surprise at this point in time. I'm also not surprised that someone took a chance on Stan Bowman, because this is a league where historically guys who have been in power continue to stay in power, even if they do have these missteps. I mean, we saw it happen with Mike Babcock being brought back somehow again for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And what does he do? The same old BS that he had done throughout his entire career. Why do we continue? Why does the NHL continue to give these same people opportunities? I don't know. I firmly believe it is just a broken league, especially when my third reaction is, what really has Stan Bowman done to make the Edmonton Oilers feel like he is the right candidate? Like, really, they felt he was the best option out there on the market to bring into this team and go and get their Stanley Cup that they're desperately trying to get right now with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. As you know, Leon's on the last year of his deal, right? Like, Stan Bowman's the guy you bring in. And to be devil's advocate, I do believe Stan Bowman made some good, minor moves, 1-for-1 swaps, some under, I don't want to say some low-key deals, but not the ones that catch head page news. Those were the ones that he really blundered. And then, as we're about to find out, going through his draft picks from 2017 to 2021, nothing really impressive in that department either. And it's not like he was the guy that drafted Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, Corey Crawford. He didn't draft any of those guys. Yeah, he made some timely additions, brought in Antoine Vermette, Johnny Oduya, those guys. I'm not going to say he's the worst general manager in NHL history, but again, I don't think he really has done anything to earn this job, especially with all the baggage that he's going to be carrying. He basically, like I said earlier, made Kyle Davidson have to start from square one in this rebuild because he twisted things up so bad, because he himself deviated from his rebuild path that he announced to the Blackhawks fans with an open letter. He went back on that 1 year later, and that ended up making things worse. So it's all just so broken. Am I surprised, though? Absolutely not, because the NHL is a shameful, shady type of league. And quite honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see Joel Quenneville get an opportunity with another league. Now, do I believe that this is right? No, I don't believe Stan Bowman should be in charge of another entire, front office, basically, as the general manager, have control over another hockey team, because of how poorly he handled the situation, and because Brad Aldrich went on to do this to multiple other people down the road, and the Blackhawks didn't do anything to stop him from doing that. So I don't really care about all the quotes out there about Stan Bowman being a rehabilitated guy, going through all of these processes to be better. I want to believe it, but part of me also believes it's BS, because it's the NHL. It's a shady league. So I don't even really know what to believe. I would have loved to never have seen Stan Bowman back in a position of power, but that's what the NHL does. They recycle the same people again and again and again, and it's a broken old wheel. And to cue up old Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones, someone needs to break that wheel. Maybe not the way that she ended up doing so in season 8 there. Quick collar pull, but you get what I mean out there, Blackhawks fans. It's busted. I'm not happy to see Stan Bowman back in the NHL. I know a lot of people feel the same way, and quite honestly, it's just another tough day to be a fan of the Edmonton Oilers. And it's not surprising, also, one of my reactions, it's not surprising they're the team that gave Stan Bowman the opportunity. This is who they are. Same team that gives Evander Kane another chance. They go and bring on Corey Perry after his situation with the Blackhawks last year. They also gave Jake Virtanen, I believe, a PTO at one point in time, despite his previous track record. So it shouldn't be any surprise that it's the Edmonton Oilers doing this. That's kind of the type of organization that they are. They don't really care about what anyone has to say. They just want to go out there and win. However, I do not believe they have the right general manager in power to go and win. So we'll see how this all winds up turning out for the Edmonton Oilers. I know there's a lot of backlash out there, and rightfully so, because it's honestly a shame, in my opinion, that Stan Bowman is back. But that's the way the NHL goes, and I'm not going to spend any more breath kind of spewing out in that direction. But there are my thoughts and initial reactions to Stan Bowman's return to the NHL. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks, I'll fittingly dive into Bowman's first-round selections from 2017 to 2021 in his time as Blackhawks general manager. But first, I got to talk to you all real quick about Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to the next ball game that you want to attend. And I'm here happy to announce that Game Time is now an official authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets both faster and easier. Plus, prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer that it gets to the first pitch. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, plus their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And I personally have used Game Time for probably close to a decade now. You all, I'm sure, have heard the spiel by this point, but when I was back in high school, going down to the United Center to watch the Blackhawks in their heyday, or going to watch those great Cubbies teams from 2014 to 2016, I always used Game Time because it's the cheapest, fastest, and easiest way for you to purchase your tickets, and I still use it to this day when I want to go attend a ball game, or if I'm traveling in another city and want to go and see a comedy event or want to go and check out a concert with one of my friends. I highly recommend you all go and download the Game Time app right now, and when you do, be sure to use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps, and you'll get $20 off with your first purchase. Yes, you heard me right. You can get $20 off to go see Seiya Suzuki and the Chicago Cubs down at Wrigley this summer. All you got to do, download Game Time, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps when you create an account. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed, Game Time. Segment 2, carrying over from what I went into yesterday when I broke down all 8 first-round selections that Kyle Davidson has made since taking over as Blackhawks general manager. I mentioned even before the news came out of Stan Bowman returning to the NHL with the Edmonton Oilers as their new general manager and vice president of hockey operations, that I was going to go through his first round selections from 2017 to 2021, talk about how that really impacted the Blackhawks in a negative direction, quite honestly, forced them to take a step back, as well as a little bit of an update as to where all of these guys are at now in their professional careers, because only 2 of them now remain with the Chicago Blackhawks, and also go through who also was still available at the time the Blackhawks made these picks. So in 2017, the Blackhawks had the 29th overall selection. The draft was actually at the United Center in Chicago, if you all remember correctly, and they traded back from number 26 to number 29 with the Dallas Stars. Dallas went on to take their goaltender of the future, Jake Ottinger, and the Blackhawks wound up selecting defenseman Henri Jokiharju, who only ended up, that's probably a name a lot of you Blackhawks fans, A, have forgotten about, and B, haven't heard in a long, long time. It feels literally like ages ago since Henri Jokiharju was a part of this team and their first round selection. But he only went on to play 38 games with the Blackhawks before ultimately Stan Bowman ended up trading him, like he did with so many former first round picks, to the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for Alex Nylander, which wound up being an absolute flop, even though the Blackhawks' Kyle Davidson fortunately came on and sort of saved the day as best as he could, as he flipped Nylander 1-for-1 for Sam Lafferty from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Lafferty ended up revitalizing his career in Chicago and was part of that package with Jake McCabe to Toronto, and the Blackhawks got a pretty good haul from there, but still undoubtedly underwhelming considering it started with the 29th overall selection. Sure, he ended up with a second-round pick in exchange for Sam Lafferty, but that's, of course, not equal value. As far as what Henri Jokiharju has been up to, had a couple bumpy first few years with the Buffalo Sabres until this past year, where it was the most sturdy performance of his entire career, set some career highs, reached 20 points for the first time in his career, and might finally be hitting his stride. He also played a lot with Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power in a top 4 role, and the Sabres did bring him back as an RFA this past year. So they're going to be giving him another opportunity, but he is a guy who doesn't really provide you with all that much offense. He's only scored more than 3 goals once, and it was his first year with the Buffalo Sabres. Last season was the first time he reached 20 points. He doesn't play on the power play. He's not really much of a penalty kill specialist. He can play on the penalty kill, but all in all, probably not worthy of a first-round selection here in hindsight. And in terms of guys of the Blackhawks could have gotten had they stayed on the board at 26. I mean, Jake Ottinger as the goaltender of the future would have been real nice, although that obviously would very much change the overall look of the franchise right here, right now. Had they taken him 26 overall in 2017, the real other stinger is that Jason Robertson was still on the board, and kudos to the Dallas Stars, man. I mean, they absolutely crushed the 2017 NHL draft. They got their goalie of the future and their potential star forward of the future in the first and second round. So got to tip my hat to them. I don't think it was a disastrous draft pick by the Blackhawks all in all, as there wasn't like a ton of studs littered in the second round, but it definitely stings seeing Ottinger being the pick that the Stars used after trading with the Blackhawks, and then Jason Robertson falling into the second round. That was the lone first-round selection the Hawks had in 2017. However, they did have two in 2018. First, they were up at number 8, and of course, they ended up drafting Swedish defenseman Adam Boqvist, which a lot of people, including myself, didn't particularly love at that point in time, because both Evan Bouchard, who has just turned into a mammoth defenseman for the Oilers, as well as Noah Dobson, who's been very solid for the New York Islanders as well, both were still available, and the Blackhawks elected to go with Boqvist. Thanks a lot, Stan Bowman. Boqvist ended up playing 76 games in the course of 2 years with the Blackhawks before being traded to the Columbus Blue Jackets as part of the package that sent Seth Jones back to Chicago. He's shown some flashes like he did those first couple of years with the Blackhawks. Over the past couple of years with Columbus, good offensive play driver, good goal scorer from the blue line as well. He's just had a really tough time staying healthy, and this past year he only played in 35 games. He only scored in 1 goal. It was probably the worst time for that to happen for him, as it was in a contract year. Columbus didn't bring him back. However, the Florida Panthers give him an opportunity on a 1-year contract, and as I talked about not all that long ago on the show, I do think that is a really good spot. If there's going to be a spot for Adam Boqvist to revitalize his career, it's with the Florida Panthers, I firmly believe. So I think that was a good under the radar, why not type of signing by the Panthers. But while Boqvist still, he could find his footing there, he's never going to provide the value at what the Blackhawks or what any team would have wanted out of the 8th overall pick, especially with Bouchard going after, Dobson going after. Yeah, this is one that absolutely stings and definitely aided in the Blackhawks taking a step back, because if they did get their star top pairing defenseman, if they did get their Evan Bouchard, things could be looking a lot different on the blue line for the Blackhawks. And it would also be looking a lot different on the blue line for them if they had done a better job or developed this man better properly over the course of the next few years, or taken a defenseman that could have helped them more. They selected Nicholas Beaudin with the 27th overall pick in 2018 out of the QMJHL, and he wound up playing in just 22 NHL games with the Blackhawks before getting traded for pennies on the dollar to the Montreal Canadiens. And he actually never appeared in an NHL game with the Canadiens. He played in 65 AHL games for the Laval Rocket over the last 2 years, tallying 2 goals and 29 assists for 31 points. However, doesn't seem like he has much of an NHL future in store. He actually made the leap overseas and played in the top league in Czechia at the end of last year, playing in 9 games there. So kind of seems like his time to make the big leagues has come to an end. And even though he's 24 years old, I don't know if anyone's going to give him an opportunity, because he hasn't necessarily even shined in the AHL despite being a former first-round pick. So this was a real toughie for the Blackhawks. And looking back at the 2018 draft, there wasn't really like any notables, like studs or true difference makers that got taken in the realm of possibility after Nicholas Beaudin. One name that I did see as a defenseman was Sean Durzi, but he didn't end up going into the 50s. So I think that one makes this sting a little bit less than Boqvist does, but no doubt about it, Nicholas Beaudin ended up being an absolute bust. And then we get to the 2019 NHL draft, the Blackhawks on the clock at number 3, and they wind up selecting Kirby Dach, who played in 3 seasons with the Blackhawks, immediately out of junior, never went down to Rockford for a true stint, could have gone back to the Saskatoon Blades in the WHL for 1 more year. Nope, Stan Bowman said, "You're coming up to the big leagues, kid," and it was kind of unfortunate that that was the path for Kirby Dach, and there wasn't a lot of patience from the organization or the fan base. under Bowman's leadership, the franchise was never really known for its development, right? So it was never quite a great spot for Kirby Dach to be in. And by the end of his Blackhawks tenure, he really didn't look like he was having a whole lot of fun out there. So ultimately, they dealt him to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for the 13th and 66th overall picks in the 2022 NHL draft. Yeah, excuse me. And Kirby had a pretty decent first year out in Montreal. However, he missed basically all of this last year due to a torn ACL, which he actually suffered against the Blackhawks, I think, in the fourth game of the year. I will say, I think the jury's still out a little bit on Dach, considering he didn't have the easiest path or transition to the NHL with the Blackhawks. They probably didn't do the best thing for his development, and then he just suffered another injury with the Montreal Canadiens, right? And he's still only 23 years old, so I'm going to kind of bite my tongue here because I don't think any of us truly know what type of player Kirby Dach is going to be. And personally for me, looking back on this draft, this one still doesn't sting as bad as missing on Adam Boqvist does, because there's a lot that goes into the situation for the Blackhawks at number 3. What I will say is Bowen Byram probably should have been the pick for them. But even he has gone through his troubles, and he's battled concussion issues since going to the NHL. You know, a lot of people maybe in hindsight would say Mo Seider, but it was even a surprise that he went in the top 10. No one expected him to be this type of defenseman, especially right out of the gate transitioning to the NHL. Trevor Zegras has gone through his struggles the last couple of years. Cole Caulfield, sure, he looks like a great player. He didn't even go until 15, so you really can't be mad about the Blackhawks not taking him at 3. Matt Boldy was never really in the mix at number 3. So this one, I don't know. For me personally, it doesn't sting that bad, even though Kirby Dach, of course, didn't wind up being a cornerstone piece of the franchise for the Blackhawks. But go and comment down below right now. Let me know your feelings. What is it now? 5 years removed from the Blackhawks, taking Kirby Dach number 3 overall. What do you think about that pick in hindsight? And then we move to the 2020 NHL Draft. Blackhawks on the clock at number 17. They select Lukas Reichel, who's now played in 99 NHL games, but still has yet to stick in the show consistently. It's going to be a big make or break type of year for Reichel, I firmly believe, this upcoming season. And while I do still believe there is upside in his game, I'm certainly not as convinced about that as I was, you know, when watching him in training camp last year, when I thought there was a chance he was going to be a leading scorer for the Blackhawks because he looked that good in camp. It just didn't translate over at the start of the year, and then it's kind of a domino effect in the wrong direction for him. But yeah, after this year, we're going to have a better idea of exactly what type of player Lukas Reichel can be in the future. Looking back on this draft, I would say Dawson Mercer probably was the miss. I would have loved Dawson Mercer at number 17. And for those of you who have been longtime viewers or longtime listeners, I loved Dawson Mercer in the 2020 NHL draft. I also loved Connor Zary, who went number 24 to the Calgary Flames. I think you could make a little bit of an argument as to whether he should have been the pick ahead of Lukas Reichel. Quite honestly, the jury is still out on both of them, but I would have definitely, if you're asking me right here, right now, Dawson Mercer or Lukas Reichel, I'm going with Dawson Mercer. So there's a little bit of regret there, but still don't really know how to feel 100% about that pick because Reichel still has a big year coming up ahead. And then last but certainly not least, Nolan Allen with the 32nd overall pick in 2021. Hawks, of course, got this pick after trading with the Columbus Blue Jackets, acquiring Seth Jones, trading Adam Boqvist. And then we saw Nolan Allen make the leap to professional hockey last year after playing with the Prince Albert Raiders and then getting traded to the Seattle Thunderbirds, helping them win the WHL title. And he had a strong first year of pro hockey, spent all 60 games playing with the Rockford IceHogs, tallying 70 points. Very likely going to be back there again for the majority of this upcoming season. It's an uphill battle for him to make the Hawks opening night roster out of camp. And while I do think Nolan Allen is going to be an NHLer and a sound defender and a good physical guy who can play in front of his own net, there undoubtedly is not a lot of upside in his game. And that was kind of the criticism around the Blackhawks selecting him with the 32nd overall pick. Allen was widely getting mid-second to like early third-round grade. So it was definitely a shock that the Blackhawks drafted him. And looking back at some of the guys, especially some of the defensemen that were still available, I don't know if I feel like this is the best value still, even though I'm higher on Nolan Allen now than I was when the Blackhawks drafted him, and even a year and a half ago from right now. Olin Zellweger, I think, would have been a great addition for the Blackhawks, although you can still make the debate right now as to who's going to be the better NHLer. J.J. Moser was still available as well, who's already been playing NHL hockey the last couple of years. Logan Stankoven was available, and man, do the Dallas Stars just do a great job of finding value late in the first and early on in the second. Matthew Knies was still available as well, so look, Nolan Allen could be a good pro, but he doesn't have the upside of any of those guys. So I still think this one is always going to be a little bit of a toughie in terms of value unless Nolan Allen absolutely becomes a stud at the next level, which we're going to have to wait and see what happens on that front over the next couple of years. But all in all, looking at these first-round picks compared to what Kyle Davidson has selected over the last couple of years, this is only, 5 players, and Davidson has drafted 8. However, I think it's pretty apparent that if Kyle Davidson is going to be drafting defensemen, he wants them on the bigger variety, and I do think he's done a better job of drafting forwards who have clear-cut upside, right? Like Lucas Reichel, I don't know if his upside was the most prevalent out of anyone in that draft. It feels like Kyle Davidson really has a mold that he sticks to, where Stan Bowman was just kind of all over the place, right? I mean, Nolan Allen to Adam Boquist, 2 completely different defensemen, both selected in the first round. Nicholas Beaudin, took a shot on him as an undersized puck-moving defenseman late in the first round, even though he played in the QMJHL, right? Like, it was kind of a little bit of all over the place, whereas at least Kyle Davidson is sticking to his guns a little bit more, and I think he undoubtedly has done a better job at finding upside in these drafts. But ultimately, we still do need to give Kyle Davidson's prospects a couple more years to fully develop and to give them the equal timeline as to these prospects that Stan Bowman drafted. However, I would take Kyle Davidson's draft mentality all day over Stan Bowman's, and the results, I think, even though a lot of those guys are just barely stepping onto the scene, if that, I think those results still are more promising than what we've seen from a lot of these guys. And Stan Bowman rushed a lot of these guys, and, Kyle Davidson has done the exact opposite, which I think goes back to Kyle Davidson's clear-cut mentality of development, whereas Stan Bowman just kind of threw that to the side in favor of winning. So there are Stan Bowman's first-round selections from 2017 to 2021. Good luck, Edmonton, in your first-round pick in the 2025 NHL Draft. Coming up in just a moment here, Hawks fans, before I wrap things up, I will rank every Blackhawks first-round pick over the past 8 years. But first, I need to talk to you all about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the championship trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors is everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Plus, with over 100 million parts to choose from, you'll always find what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride, every time, or else you'll get your money back. So keep your ride or die alive with eBay Motors, because we're burning rubber, not cash. Go and check out ebaymotors.com to save money today on all the parts you'll need, all the prices that you will want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and to bring home that win. Again, that's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only and exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S.-based customers. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, just a quick reminder to please go and hit that like button, comment down below, and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. And if you're tuning in through an audio platform, please go and leave a rate and review. Those always put a big smile on my face, preferably a 5-star review. And also, make sure to go and check out the new Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. So make sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and to subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, segment 3. Before I wrap things up, I thought it would be fun to rank every Blackhawks first-round pick from 2017 through 2024. And when I mean rank them, I mean in terms of what types of player they are, the value in those picks, who else was still on the board at this point in time. We're taking everything into consideration here, and I thought it would just be a fun little way to round out today's show since we've been talking about these first-round picks here in the last couple of days. Starting things off, no surprise here, the 2023 first overall selection, Connor Bedard, undoubtedly has to go number 1. I mean, he was a no-brainer. It was great value, even though there was never any contention for him going number 1 overall. He's the face of the franchise, has the highest ceiling of any prospect to hit the NHL since Connor McDavid. Best prospect the Blackhawks have had since Patrick Kane. So, yeah, he's going to top this list. Number 2, though, is where things start to get interesting. Kind of like the 2024 NHL draft, right? Everyone knew who was going number 1, but who's going number 2? And this is where, I mean, really, this list is just up for interpretation. Go and comment your list if you want down below right now, or at least give me your top 5 favorite Blackhawks first-round picks since 2017. For me, coming in at number 2 is none other than Frank the Tank Nazar. First off, 13th, I think, is excellent value. And when I talk with Hadi Kalakash from Locked On NHL Prospects and we bring up Frankie Nazar, he always reminds me that he had Nazar as the 3rd best player in the 2022 NHL draft. There's so much upside in his game. There's the belief that he can affect the game in all areas of the ice, the power play, the penalty kill. He could play center at the next level. He's got the foot speed. He's got the playmaking. He's a sneaky good goal scorer as well. Oh, yeah, he's an Energizer bunny out there, elite work ethic. The only real knock on Frank Nazar is his size, but he hasn't let that stop him from having success at any level, and boy, did he look like a runaway freight train in those first 3 NHL games. To get that type of player that I firmly believe, Blackhawks fans, is going to be a crucial piece of the top 6, if not the top line with Connor Bedard moving forward for this Blackhawks franchise. To get that guy at number 13, I think is excellent. I have Frank Nazar coming in at number 2. At number 3, I have Oliver Moore. Getting him 19th overall, I literally thought it was so impossible that I didn't even do, you all know if you've been watching the show, at least through the course of the summer, these draft prospects, I go through their draft profiles here on the show. I didn't even cover Oliver Moore with the Blackhawks at number 19 because I quite honestly didn't think with his wheels that someone wasn't going to take a chance on him in the top 10. No idea how he fell to number 19 still in this world. A little bit of a slow start to his freshman year with Minnesota, but really found his footing as the year went on and got close to that point per game margin going back. I think he's going to have a big time year as one of the head honchos for the Golden Gophers. And then I expect him to turn pro. But like Frank Nazar, he's got the mold to make an impact all over the ice. A really good two-way game. He's a hard forechecker, a good face-off type of guy, and he has even better foot speed than Frank Nazar, and maybe the best foot speed of any prospect in these NHL drafts, according to Elite Prospects. So I have Oliver Moore coming in at number 3. I think he could be the second-line center of the future for the Blackhawks, which is going to be a very important role, obviously. To get that guy, I think, at number 19, real good value by GMKD. At number 4, I do have Artem Levshinov. And while, yes, I made it very apparent on the show that I would have rather had the Blackhawks select Ivan Demidov, I still believe Artem Levshinov firmly deserved to be the first defenseman off the draft. I do agree that outside of Macklin Celebrini, He's probably the most NHL-ready player from the 2024 draft class, and that's also why I wasn't partially surprised that he made the leap to pro hockey. He won't be in the NHL next year, but playing against, big bodies in the AHL, I think that's going to be really good for his development. I don't know exactly how high the upside is. I wouldn't be surprised if Artem Levshunov doesn't wind up being maybe the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Headlineable or star-powered defenseman from this year's draft. He might not be the one that's the best point getter, but I do think he's going to be a very good all-around two-way type of guy, and I think he's going to be a top 4 defenseman of the future for the Blackhawks. So I have Levshunov at number 4. At number 5, I have Kevin Korchinski. I know his rookie NHL campaign didn't go as hoped, but he was the youngest defenseman in the entire league, a young 19-year-old. And I still firmly believe in his upside because of his wheels, because of his puck moving. I think he could be the power play of the quarterback of the second power play unit while Seth Jones is still here. And I do think as he grows into that frame of his and gets better experience, we're going to see that upside more and more frequently at the pro scene. And Kevin Korchinski at number 7, I made the debate yesterday that, maybe the Blackhawks should have taken Pavel Mintyukov, but I still think there's so much runway there for Kevin Korchinski, and I really still like him as a player. I'm not deviating from that after just one down rookie year on a horrendous Blackhawks team where, he really wasn't playing next to guys that'll help him out there on the ice. So I have Korchinski at number 5. I have Sam Rinzel at number 6. And I know there were players that, looking back on it, the Blackhawks probably would have rather had in their prospect pool, but I still think with so much runway in Rinzel's game and the strong freshman campaign he had with Minnesota, helping Team USA win gold at the World Juniors, obviously he's still far away from the pro scene, so we can't exactly put our finger on what type of player he's going to be, but if he makes it, I think he has the body, the skating ability, the two-way game to be a really good defender for the Blackhawks. I see him similar to Levshunov. I see him as a middle pairing defenseman of the future, potentially in Chicago. Number 7, I have Kirby Dach. I don't know if many Blackhawks fans are going to agree with me on this one, but for the reasons I outlined in segment 2, I still don't hate this pick, or this pick doesn't sting to me as bad as Adam Boqvist or even Nicholas Beaudin in the year prior. Or even like a Nolan Allen, taking him at number 32 with that lack of upside. Like, that one to me still stings a little bit more, even though, again, I think Nolan Allen is going to be a good player. I have Kirby Dach at number 7. I have Lucas Reichel coming in at number 8. 17th, I think, is fair value for him. Number 9, I have Marek Vanacker. I thought, maybe controversially compared to other Blackhawks fans, that trading up to get him in the first round was a good idea. I don't think they could have gotten him at number 34, truthfully. And there's a lot to like about his well-rounded offensive makeup with his good foot speed, his growing confidence in his playmaking abilities. He's going to have a big-time year with the Brantford Bulldogs. Vanacker, quite honestly, if we do this list in the year's time, he could wind up, at number 6 or number 7. At number 10, I have Sasha Boisvert, one of my probably my least favorite first-round selection, that GM Kyle Davidson. I've been talking about Stan Bowman so much on the show, I almost I'm almost spewing out his name habitually. Boisvert, we know the drill. I don't love his upside. I don't love the lack of foot speed. I don't love the playmaking. He's got a good work ethic, though, and he's going to North Dakota, so the jury is still very much out on him. I have Nolan Allen coming in at number 11. I have Henry Jokiharju coming in at number 12. I think Allen has the better size and the better physicality to be a shutdown defender, and that's kind of what Henry Jokiharju has turned into with Buffalo. So, even if they were the same age, I'd rather take my chance on Nolan Allen because of his game and the style he plays. At number 13, I have Nicholas Beaudin. Number 14, I think it has to be the most painful Blackhawks first-round selection in the last 8 years. Adam Boqvist at number 8. Not only him being a bust, but to see the type of defenseman that Evan Bouchard has turned out to be, that one's going to sting for a long, long time. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. I know we ran a little bit long, but thanks to everyone who tuned in from start to finish. Please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button, comment down below, and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes, and you'll get notified when they're uploaded each and every day if you ring that bell. Be sure to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks, follow Locked On Blackhawks, for free as well, wherever you may be listening to your podcast. Rate and review if you like what you're listening to on a daily basis. You can find me on X at Jack Bushman too. Go and show some love to the show's X account at capital L, capital O _ Blackhawks, closing in on 2,000 followers there as well. So make sure to go and hit that button. Until next time, everyone, enjoy the rest of your days. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.